Hey everyone, and welcome to the Leadership Project Live. Today's topic is going to be about fear and limiting beliefs and whether you are letting fear get in the way of your success. And please stay tuned to the end, because at the end of the show, we're going to give some practical tips on how you can address your fears, overcome your limiting beliefs, and move forward to create the life that you deserve. So here we go. So welcome back. Today's show is going to be about fear and limiting beliefs. And fear and limiting beliefs are things that really do hold us back from becoming the person that we could become, from fulfilling our complete potential. Stay tuned to the end of the show, because I'm going to be giving you practical tips along the way as to how you can address these fears, address these limiting beliefs, and overcome them once and for all, to have the confidence to move forward. And those tips will be coming towards the end. So let's get into today's content. I've said this to you before. Your mindset is everything. Your mindset is everything. There's almost nothing more powerful than the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves in our own mind. And that's what we're going to be addressing here today, is these thoughts that keep on coming into our mind, and whether we're addressing them and making them a positive story where we look forward and look at how we can address our life, or whether we're allowing those stories to become a negative one that influence the way that we see the world. Now, I've got to show this comment. Please, if you do have any questions or comments along the way, please do. This one's for my son, so I have to show that. That has absolutely made my day. Just hello data there from Thomas. So thank you. If you do have any questions along the way, if you're watching live, post your questions now and I'll address them as we go. And if you're watching after the live stream, also post your questions or comments in the comments and I'll address them afterwards as well. So this thing around fear and limiting beliefs, what is it all about? Well, fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. That's the famous quote from Susie Cassin. She also says doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. And I'm going to add to it and say fear and limiting beliefs, the stories that we tell ourselves, kill more dreams than failure ever will. So it's this thing that stops you from even starting, is the first thing that is holding you back. And as Wayne Gretzky famously puts it, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So if we're not even trying, that's worse than failing. That's worse than failing. We're not even giving it our very best shot. There's no chance of success unless we're getting ourselves out there. Furthermore, if you think about the famous quote from Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So even if you do go out and put yourself out there and try something new, if you start with the mindset that you're not going to succeed, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we need to address our mindset as we move forward and get out there and get beyond these fears, beyond these limiting beliefs, and give it a red hot go. Now, let's wind the clock forward. Like, you think about towards the end of your life, even in the mid section of your life, what do people mostly regret? People mostly regret things that they didn't do. It's inaction. You'll hear them say things like, oh, if only I'd done this, if only I'd tried something new, if I'd only put myself out there, my life would be different right now. Well, that's a forward-looking thing. That's looking into the future and hoping that you had done something in your past. What about an action that you can take now that might improve your future? Now, to be clear, regret is not a feeling that serves us well. There's no amount of regret that can change the world. There's no amount of anxiety that can change the world. The only things that you can really do is influence what you do now. But what I am championing here is for you to not, in future and your future self, for you to think if only. And here's another comment from the chat, saying the only limits you have are the limits you believe. And that's exactly it. This is the story that you're telling yourself. And whether you're believing those negative thoughts or whether you can process those negative thoughts, because they will exist, and move forward. And that's what today's show is going to be about. So let's talk about fear. Our number one fear is around fear of loss. Fear of loss is a big one that holds us back. And this fear of loss can come in all kinds of ways. People automatically think about financial loss. Am I going to lose money from this? They might think of loss of friends. They might think loss of their job, all of these kind of things. But one of the biggest ones is our fear of loss of our identity. And this is a big one that holds us back from change in our life, whether it's organizational change in the workplace or changes that we might make in our day-to-day family life and our life outside work. We worry that our identity will not be intact at the other end of this journey. So let's use the organizational one as an example. If there's a big organizational change coming on, and many industries are being disrupted right now by artificial intelligence and other digitalization and other initiatives that are happening in organizations, if I'm the expert in today's technology and my company is introducing new technology, I fear that I won't be the expert at the other end of the journey. And all I have to say to you here is if you don't act on that, then that becomes true. That becomes true. But if you move with the change and you grab hold of the pen and you help co-architect the change, of course you can be the expert in the new technology at the other end. And it might be a very exciting journey. So we need to address this loss of identity and ask ourselves, is it true? Is it real? And what can we do to address it so that it doesn't become a self-fulfilling prophecy? Now, where does a lot of this come from, this fear of loss? A lot of it is psychological and physiological needs that we have. So the number one function of our brain is just to keep us safe, nothing more. Not to make us happy, not to make us wealthy, not to give us joy. The number one function of the brain is to keep us safe. And therefore, survival instinct is probably the most significant instinct that ever holds us back from taking action. And that in thousands of years ago was probably the right thing. If there was a saber-toothed tiger outside the cave, we need to have our situational awareness and we need to be able to keep ourselves safe. But many of the dangers that we had in those older generations and many years ago, many of those things don't exist anymore. And yet that physiological and psychological element of our brain has remained with us as we've gone about evolution, and it hasn't been switched off. So what it means is that our fear of loss is 5 to 10 times greater than our appreciation of gain. And I've got a picture of a person playing poker here because that's what casinos and gambling organizations, that's what it relies on. It relies on the fact that we're going to fear losing money more than we'll appreciate gaining money. And this is where some of the science kicks in. They've shown that we regret losing $100 more than gaining $100. And where the 5 to 10 times comes in is we need to win $1,000 for it to feel as good as losing $100 feels bad. So this is working against us. And if we're aware of it, we can work with that phenomena and we can make sure that we're processing it and moving forward. The next psychological need is our need for love and belonging. Our need for love and belonging drives us to a situation where we don't necessarily want to be the one who wants to stand out from the crowd. We might have a really great idea, something that we want to propose at work, a business that we might want to start, something new that we might want to try, but our fear of love and belonging takes us to a point where we don't want to stand out from the crowd. And this is where we have things like the Ash experiment, a very famous experiment where scientists brought people into a room and showed them an answer to a puzzle that they had to answer. And the answer was actually quite obvious, but the actors in the room were giving a wrong answer. And then the final person felt the peer pressure to also give the wrong answer. So their need for love and belonging outweighs their need to be right. And this is another thing that can hold us back from action. We don't necessarily want to be the one that stands out from the crowd and does something differently. And I can tell you, we had an interview with Gina Gorlin on the Leadership Project podcast, where she was unpacking the mindset of innovators, creators, builders, founders of new companies. And this was one of the things that did stand out in terms of what's different about these innovative founders that create new startups and change the world, is they're able to overcome this need for love and belonging, and it's more important for them to change the world than it is to fit in with the crowd. We've got another comment here from Tim, joining from South Carolina. Thank you for the post. If you've got any questions or comments along the way, please do share with us as we go. So the other one I would implore you to have a look at, if you want to look deeper into how pervasive this need for love and belonging and the need to not stand out comes, is you can look into YouTube and search on this dental surgery waiting room experiment. Similar type of thing. I won't spoil it for you now. If you go and look at it, you'll see just how much the need to not stand out, the need to belong, influences our actions. All right, here's a really big one for everyone listening. I want you to really, if you don't take anything away from today's live stream other than what I'm about to share with you now, this is it. This is the gold. The next one is our fear of judgment. This could be that we're walking down the street, we've got strangers walking past us, and the whole time we're worried about whether they're judging us on our appearance, on what we're doing, all of these things. It could be that my shoes are particularly scuffed today, and I'm worried about whether people are going to judge me because I didn't polish my shoes this morning. Are they going to be looking at my appearance? Are they going to think that I'm overweight? Are they going to think that I picked the wrong outfit this morning? Many of us walk around the world with this fear of judgment. Here's the secret that I want to share with you, is for the most part, we're worried about what others think, but people are not judging you. People are generally not judging you. There are some exceptions, of course, but most people are just going about their daily life and they're not thinking about you at all. They're thinking about what they've got to do at work that day. They're thinking about the groceries they've got to pick up on the way home that night. They're thinking about last night's date or whatever they've done in the recent past. The majority of people are not thinking about you at all. If they are thinking about you, now here's the meta part of this, there's a better than average chance that the thought that's coming into their head is they're worried about whether you're judging them. So we have this crazy world where we're walking around fearing whether someone else is judging us. And the whole time that person that we're worried about is worried about whether we're judging them. That's the more common one. If anyone is thinking about you, they're worried about whether you're judging them, not the other way around. I hope that helps a lot of people out there that walk around wondering about whether people are judging them. I hope that this little bit of information can help you free yourself from that fear of judgment. Furthermore, I said that there are, of course, some people out there that are judgmental and they are going to look at you and have some kind of thought come across their mind. What I want to share with you is if they are judging you, it's a reflection of their own insecurities. If they're judging you on your appearance, it's because they're worried about their appearance. If they're judging you on your actions, it's because they're worried about their own actions. So if you do feel that someone on the tram, the bus, walking past you in the street had some kind of judgment of you, it speaks more about them than it does about you. So please I implore you, get past this fear of judgment. And here we got on LinkedIn a comment 100% on that. It's very true. We all do it. So have a bit of self-compassion. Don't beat yourself up about this. But the sooner you can move past this, the better you'll be. All right, our next fear is our fear of failure. What if we try something and we don't succeed? What will people think of us then? What will my family think of me? What will my friends think of me? What if I try and I fail? The one question I've got to ask you, what if you succeed? What if you succeed? What if it is everything you dreamed of? If you don't give it a try, you're not going to get out there and give it a shot. So letting this fear of failure holding you back, you're holding you back from yourself back from your own success. And here's Tim, another comment here. I'm in an area of my life that struggles with limiting beliefs, but not really with the definitions you mentioned. Okay, Tim, I'd love to hear more about the definitions that you have. And we've got a few more coming as well, but I'd love to help you out if there's any specific limiting beliefs that you would like to discuss as well. The other one, strangely, the counteract of this is, what about fearing success? What if I try this thing and it turns out to be really successful and it does change my life? And if we come back to our fear of change, maybe we won't be the same person after this venture that we're about to go on. Maybe we won't be the same person again, and maybe it's irreversible and all of a sudden we've let the cat out of the bag. This is also a very human reaction and one that you need to process. And I still come back to reframing, turn that into a positive statement. And we'll talk more about that with what if statements coming up as well. Now, let's get into some of the tips as to what we can do about this. The first part is we need to acknowledge our relationship with doubt. Everyone has doubts. Everyone has doubts. So you're not some kind of subhuman if you feel like you're having doubts and no one else is. Everyone has doubts. So don't beat yourself up about it. There's no such thing as someone being fearless. What courage is the people out there that act despite fear. It's not that they didn't have fear. It's the ones that take the bold decision and they act despite fear. Confidence is the ability to act despite our doubts. So we have our doubts, we acknowledge our doubts, and we move forward and we try anyway. And here's some practical tips on how you can go about this. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is what's called the competence confidence curve. And it's a cycle that we can get ourselves on in a virtuous way. The idea here is to get yourself just the other side of your comfort zone, but not so far that we're setting ourselves up for a big fail, or we're setting ourselves up that the task becomes so daunting that we don't even try. So we look at the task and go, okay, where do we want to be in the future? And what ways can we take baby steps towards that? And when we do those baby steps and we're successful, we're building our confidence. And each step, we're building our competence. And every time we get more competent, we try again and we succeed a little bit more, we get more confident, and it keeps on building on each other. And an example I use here quite often is tennis. I'm going off to play tennis immediately after this live stream. I'm a level 4 tennis player, which is okay. It's not world beating, of course, but it's okay. I'm happy with that. But how do I get better at tennis? I get better at tennis by playing against level 5 players. I don't try to beat Roger Federer or Novak Djokovic or Rafael Nadal, because that's going to end in tears for everyone. Novak's not going to enjoy playing against me, and I'm going to get completely destroyed playing against him. So I don't reach so far that it destroys my confidence. But I also don't stay in my comfort zone. When I play against level 4 players, I play okay and I get a little bit better each time. When I play against level 3 players, level 2 players, I get worse. I actually don't play very well at all. So it's about reaching just beyond your comfort zone and getting that little bit of confidence and competence each time you go along. And it's having a plan to do it. The next part of it is what we call the Zeigarnik effect and overcoming the law of inertia. So the law of inertia tells us that a body at rest stays at rest, a body in motion stays in motion. So if you're going to try something new, the most important step is the first step. If you've always thought about going to the gym and you go to the gym, you get your shoes on, you get your clothes on, you go into the gym and you get on that treadmill, you're not going to stop after 30 seconds. You're going to go, well, I'm here now. I might as well keep going. So taking the first steps, breaking the inertia and getting yourself moving is what will help you to build momentum. The other ways of moving beyond fear is to address the fear itself. So asking yourself some very challenging questions. What am I afraid of? What is this fear? What's the source of this fear? Where did this fear come from? When I have the fear, do I know that fear to be true, or is it something that I've just catastrophized in my own mind? And we'll talk more about that word in a few moments. So what is this fear? What is the source of the fear? And do I know that to be true? And part of it is also to just get over yourself and to be able to laugh it off. You're not going to be perfect at anything you try new the first time. You're never going to be perfect at it on your very first attempt. So you need to be able to get out there and try something and then to be able to laugh at yourself and learn from it when it doesn't go perfectly on your first attempt. So similar again to the confidence competence cycle, what we're trying to do is try a little bit at a time. It's going to, parts of it are going to go well, parts of it are not going to go well. We need to get over ourselves and anything that where we start questioning our own self-worth because it didn't work, we need to look at what did work and then move forward. So this word catastrophizing is one that happens quite a lot. And catastrophizing is when all we can see is the negative. All we can see is the negative. It's when we start looking forward and start looking into the future and going, well, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. And every path, every thought that crosses our mind is a negative thought. How we challenge this is to face it head on and go, well, what's the worst that could happen here? What's the absolute worst? And then we work on what is the worst that could happen. We start looking at, well, what's the probability that that could occur? And quite often, this catastrophic event that we're worried about, the probability of it happening is less than 0.1%, but it's playing on our mind and it's holding up ourselves back. We also have to ask ourselves, are we overplaying the significance? So the probability is what is the chances are going to happen. The significance is when we start thinking that it's bigger than it really is. Is it really the end of the world if that thing happens that we're worried about? So we start playing this and we start creating these little pathways. I'm going to take a little pause here and just reflect on some comments that we're getting from Tim. So I'm experiencing a spiritual awakening that has helped me identify identity issues that are blocking my growth. So first thing, Tim, you're doing the right thing, raising your awareness and having a look at what is this telling you. And then my childhood religious upbringing has created turmoil in my current understanding of life. I agree with you, though, on your thoughts of judgment and value. So thank you, Tim. The one thing I want to say is when you've had these experiences in your past, they can be what's holding you back from your future. So I'd encourage you to do the work, go and seek help if you need to. If you need to talk something about it, we can then process it and work forward. So what in psychology, we talk about 4 different mindsets, and I'll just talk about 2 right now. One is a resolving mindset, which is what therapists do. They look into the past, they look at sources of trauma and help us process the past. And then a heightening mindset is more what a coach does. And they enable us to look forward into the future and go, okay, what are we going to do differently to get a different result into the future? So Tim, I'd encourage you to look at that and to get someone that may be able to help you to overcome those so that you can take action moving forward. So moving beyond these fears, we start looking at what is the most likely outcome. And we get a bit more realistic. We've already thought about what's the worst thing that could happen, but really, honestly, what is the most likely outcome? What can I do to influence that outcome? What is in my control? What can I do to influence that outcome? So if there's something in particular that I want to achieve out of this, what can I do? What levers are in front of me that I can use to influence the outcome? And then for the most likely outcome, ask yourself that question again. Okay, will that really be that bad? And quite often, the answer is it's nowhere near as bad as the trauma or the effect that we've thought about in our mind. As Seneca famously says, we suffer more in our imagination than we do in reality. So we catastrophize it in our mind, but the reality is not as bad as the picture that we painted out. Then we can shift to the positives and go, okay, I've processed the worst thing that could happen now. I've processed the most likely outcome. What are the positive impacts? What are the positive impacts that could come if I take this action? And we start reframing. I said this before, we start reframing the what if, which can be a negative question. And we start thinking about, well, imagine if. So instead of having a sentence that starts with what if negative consequence, we start reframing into imagine if, into a positive action. And then to embrace a growth mindset and to think about this along the way, that sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So if you try something and it doesn't work exactly as the way that you thought it was going to be, you still didn't fail, you just learn. So every time you try something, there's something to take away from it. And this is where the power of self-reflection comes in. And I want you to remember this, that learning does not change the world. It's applied learning that changes the world, right? So what we do is after we attempt this new thing that we haven't tried before, we're going to get out there and we're going to do the work to reflect on it and go, okay, what went well? What didn't go well? What will I do differently next time? What did I learn about myself? And what did I learn about others? This is when we can start thinking about how we put that applied learning into the next time that we try this different event or different action. So here we are. Here's your call to action. What I want you to do is stop letting fear hold you back. I want you to remember that people are not judging you. They're going about their own life. If anything, they're worried about whether you're judging them. So let go of judgment. Let go of your fear of judgment. Embrace your relationship with fear and doubt. Acknowledge that everyone has fears. Everyone has doubts. But what are you going to do about it? Get out there and take action. Try something new. Get yourself on the Zeigarnik effect, where the first very steps get you going. And then on the confidence curve and cycle, where the more you try it, the better you'll get at it. The more confidence you'll build, the more competence you'll build, and it becomes a self-fulfilling, virtuous path. And then at the end of each try, reflect, learn, and try again. And this is how we build our confidence, we overcome our fears, and we overcome our limiting beliefs. Very interesting comment here from Tim. You also have to work on your self-worth and whether you believe that you deserve this success. So sometimes there is a mindset of wondering if we are deserving of the positive outcome. So I'm going to say this very bluntly. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. Stop second guessing whether you are enough. Everyone in your own life, you are enough. And if you're looking to address things like self-doubt, we need to address the negative inner chatter, the voice in our head that's telling us that we're not enough. We need to stop looking at external validation, where we're looking for approval seeking, where we start putting our own self-value more on the value of other human beings. And we embrace what Scott Mounts calls the 90-10 rule. We don't ignore other human beings because we're in a world where we do associate with other human beings every day. But what we should be doing is looking at it from a point of 90% of our self-worth should be our own opinion of ourselves, and 10% external validation from other human beings. And too often, we've got that exactly the other way around, where we put our own self-worth as 90% on the opinion of others. And thank you for your support, Tim. I really appreciate it. I hope that today's live stream has given you some things to work on. Fully agree with you. This is not easy stuff. This is why I'm doing this live stream. If it was easy, we'd all be masters of this. We'd be masters of our own mindset, and we're going forward. But what is certainly true is if you don't do the work, you never move forward. All right, so here's your actions. Stop letting fear hold you back. People are not judging you. Address your relationship with fear and doubt. Take action, and then do the work to reflect, learn, and try again. That's the end of today's discussion. Thank you so much for your time today on today's live stream. In the next live stream, we're going to be talking about resilience, which plays very strongly into the things that we've been talking here with Tim's comments about how we bounce back when things don't go to plan. High performance individuals, one of the things that sets them apart is their ability to quickly bounce back and to go again. So next week's show will be all about resilience. Thank you. And please do like and subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel so that you can keep up with our future live streams. And we hope that this content is helping you.